The assassination of Miguel Uribe Turbay, unraveling the motives and masterminds behind a Colombian tragedy. On June 7, 2025, Colombia was rocked by the assassination attempt on Miguel Uribe Turbay, a prominent senator and presidential pre-candidate for the 2026 election, during a campaign rally in Bogotá's El Golfito Park. Shot 3 times, twice in the head and once in the leg, Uribe clung to life for 2 months before succumbing to complications on August 11, 2025. The attack, executed by a 14-year-old hitman, has reignited fears of Colombia's violent past, evoking memories of the 1980s and 1990s when political assassinations were rampant. With 6 suspects arrested, including an alleged mastermind, the investigation points to a complex web of motives ranging from political vendettas to criminal enterprises. This essay delves into the assassination, analyzing the leading theories, potential perpetrators, and their motives, while contextualizing the event within Colombia's fraught political and social landscape. It also incorporates relevant material, such as historical parallels and contemporary political dynamics, to provide a comprehensive understanding of this pivotal moment. Background: a legacy of violence and political ambition. Miguel Uribe Turbay's profile. Miguel Uribe Turbay, born January 28, 1986, was a rising star in Colombia's conservative Democratic Center Party, founded by former President Álvaro Uribe Vélez. A senator since 2022, Uribe was a vocal critic of President Gustavo Petro's leftist administration, particularly its Total Peace Initiative, and handling of security issues. His presidential candidacy, announced in March 2025, positioned him as a procedural conservative, advocating for constitutional reforms and economic stability, in contrast to the populist rhetoric of party rival Maria Fernanda Cabal. His lineage: grandson of former President Julio César Turbay Ayala, 1978–1982, and son of journalist Diana Turbay, killed by the Medellin cartel in 1991, made him a symbol of Colombia's enduring struggle with political violence. Uribe's campaign focused on restoring security and opposing Petro's policies, making him a target for those threatened by his platform. Colombia's history of political violence. Colombia's history is marred by political assassinations, particularly during the late 20th century, when drug cartels, paramilitaries, and guerrilla groups like the FARC targeted public figures. Notable cases include Luis Carlos Galán, 1989, a liberal presidential candidate killed by the Medellin cartel; Jaime Pardo Leal, 1987, and Bernardo Jaramillo, 1990, both of the leftist Patriotic Union, assassinated by paramilitary drug cartel alliances. Carlos Pizarro Leon Gomez, 1990, an M19 candidate, killed weeks before the election. These murders, often linked to political and economic power struggles, created a climate of fear that stifled democratic processes. The 2016 peace agreement with FARC aimed to end such violence, but the rise of dissident factions like Second Marquetalia, and criminal groups like Clan del Golfo has perpetuated instability. The assassination of Uribe, coupled with the killing of 71 social leaders in 2025 alone, signals a resurgence of this dark legacy. The assassination, details and immediate aftermath. The attack. On June 7, 2025, at approximately 5 p.m., Uribe was addressing supporters at El Golfito Park in Bogotá's Modelia neighborhood when a 14-year-old assailant, later identified as alias Tians, opened fire with a 9mm Glock-style pistol. The senator was struck 3 times, sustaining critical injuries to his head and leg. 2 others were injured in the ensuing chaos, and the shooter was wounded in the foot during a shootout with Uribe's bodyguards. The teenager was arrested at the scene, claiming he was hired by La Olla, a local drug gang, for 20 million pesos, approximately $5,000, to support his family. The weapon, legally purchased in Arizona in 2020, raised questions about arms trafficking networks. Uribe underwent multiple surgeries at Fundación Santa Fe but died on August 11, 2025, after a cerebral hemorrhage. Investigation and arrests. The Colombian authorities swiftly detained 6 suspects, the shooter, alias Tians, a 14-year-old charged with attempted homicide and illegal firearm possession. He confessed to acting for money but provided limited details about his handlers. Carlos Eduardo Mora González, alias El Vinico, a 27-year-old driver from Caquetá, linked to reconnaissance and logistics. He had a prior arrest in 2024 for transporting military-grade weapons. Catherine Andrea Martinez, alias Gabriela or Andrea, a 19-year-old accused of supplying the pistol. William Fernando González Cruz, alias El Viejo or El Hermano, tasked with aiding the shooter's escape. Elder Jose Arteaga Hernández, alias Chippy or El Costeño, arrested on July 5, 2025, as the alleged mastermind who coordinated the attack. Christian Camilo González, a motorcycle driver assisting the escape. All suspects pleaded not guilty, and the investigation remains ongoing, with no definitive motive established as of August 2025. The Ministry of National Defense offered a 3 billion peso reward for information, and intercepted communications are being analyzed to uncover the intellectual authors. National and international reactions. The assassination sparked widespread condemnation. President Gustavo Petro declared August 12, 2025, a day of national mourning and expressed solidarity, referencing the 1991 murder of Uribe's mother. He suggested Second Marquetalia's involvement, stating it was probable and motivated by money. Democratic Center leaders, including Álvaro Uribe, accused Petro's government of fostering an ambience of violence and linked the attack to Petro's allies or Venezuela's Nicolás Maduro. International leaders, including U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Chilean President Gabriel Boric, and Ecuadorian President Daniel Noboa, condemned the attack, with Rubio controversially blaming Petro's leftist rhetoric without evidence. Marches and protests. A march of silence in Bogotá's Plaza Bolívar drew 70,000 people, though some placards accused Petro of complicity, escalating political tensions. Theories and potential perpetrators. 1. Second Marquetalia, FARC dissident faction. Overview. The leading theory, supported by intelligence reports, points to Second Marquetalia, a FARC dissident group led by Iván Márquez, as the orchestrator. The group, based in Caquetá and protected by Venezuela's Maduro regime, opposes the 2016 peace agreement, and Democratic Center's hardline stance against it. Evidence. Revista Semana reported intercepted communications linking the attack to Second Marquetalia's stronghold in Caquetá. Jose Aldinever Sierra Sabo Gol, alias Zarco Aldinever, second in command, was a key suspect until his death in an ELN ambush in Venezuela, hindering the investigation. A figure known as Daniel or David, a former FARC columna Móvil Teófilo Ferrero member, is suspected of coordinating with El Costeño to outsource the attack. The shooter's connection to La Olla suggests local gangs acted as subcontractors for a larger organization, a common tactic for FARC dissidents. Motive: Uribe's opposition to the peace process and his influence within the Democratic Center threaten Second Marquetalia's territorial control, and drug trafficking operations. The assassination could destabilize the opposition and signal the group's resurgence. Challenges: the death of Zarco Aldinever and lack of concrete evidence make it difficult to confirm Second Marquetalia's role. Critics argue the theory relies on circumstantial intelligence, and Petro's endorsement may be politically motivated to deflect blame. 2. Political conspiracy involving Petro's administration. Overview: opposition figures, including Álvaro Uribe and Vicky Davila, speculate that Petro's government or allies orchestrated the attack to exploit a crisis and neutralize the opposition. Evidence: The attack occurred days after Petro's labor, pension, and energy reforms were rejected by the Senate, prompting him to propose a national constituent assembly to bypass Congress, a move critics deemed unconstitutional. The assassination shifted focus to security issues, potentially bolstering Petro's call for executive power. The shooter's enrollment in Jóvenes en Paz, a Petro administration program for vulnerable youth, has raised suspicions of exploitation for political purposes. Posts on X by Abelardo de la Espriella and others claim Petro and Maduro collaborated to protect Second Marquetalia, suggesting a broader conspiracy. Motive: by targeting a secondary figure like Uribe, Petro could discredit the opposition without risking mass unrest, justifying increased state control under the guise of preventing violence. The attack aligns with accusations of Petro's authoritarian legalism, where institutions are repurposed for executive gain. Challenges: no direct evidence links Petro's government to the attack, and his condemnation contradicts this narrative. The theory thrives on political polarization and distrust rather than substantiated proof. 3. Clan del Golfo and criminal networks. Overview: former Medellín Mayor Daniel Quintero suggested Clan del Golfo, a ejército gatista de Colombia, a major criminal syndicate, orchestrated the attack, possibly with far-right or foreign actors to destabilize Petro's government. Evidence: the shooter's reference to La Olla aligns with Clan del Golfo's use of urban drug gangs as proxies for contract killings. Suspect Carlos Mora's ties to Caquetá, a region with significant Clan del Golfo activity, support this theory. The group's history of targeted violence and opposition to Petro's Total Peace Initiative, which has failed to curb their growth, makes them a plausible candidate. Motive: Clan del Golfo could benefit from political chaos to maintain their drug trafficking and extortion networks, especially as cocaine production surged 53% in 2023. Challenges: no definitive evidence connects Clan del Golfo to the attack, and Quintero's claims may reflect political bias to shield Petro's administration. 4. Internal Democratic Center power struggle. Overview: pro-government narratives on social media suggest an internal plot within the Democratic Center, possibly led by Maria Fernanda Cabal, to eliminate Uribe, as a rival for the presidential nomination. Evidence: Uribe's procedural approach clashed with Cabal's hardline populism, creating tensions over the party's direction. Cabal's call for civil resistance and criticism of Uribe's caution could indicate a motive. Pro-government ex-posts claim the attack was a right-wing conspiracy to clear Cabal's path to the presidency. Motive: removing Uribe could consolidate power for Cabal's faction, aligning the Democratic Center with a nationalist populist agenda. Challenges: this theory lacks credible evidence and appears to be a politically motivated narrative to sow discord within the opposition. Cabal's public mourning and suspension of campaign activities contradict this claim. Contextual analysis, motives and broader implications. Political climate. Colombia's political landscape in 2025 is deeply polarized. Petro's Total Peace Initiative, intended to negotiate with armed groups, has been criticized for emboldening factions like Second Marquetalia and Clan del Golfo. The EMC, Estado Mayor Central, grew from 14 to 26 substructures between 2021 and 2023, and cocaine production hit a record 2,664 metric tons in 2023. Homicides and kidnappings have risen in conflict zones, undermining Petro's security credentials. The assassination, occurring amidst Petro's legislative defeats and controversial proposals, has fueled accusations of orchestrated chaos to justify authoritarian measures. Historical parallels. The assassination mirrors past political murders, such as the 1948 killing of Jorge Eliezer Gaitán, which sparked a decade-long civil war, and the 1989 assassination of Luis Carlos Galán, orchestrated by drug cartels and political rivals. These cases often involved complex networks of state, criminal, and guerrilla actors, with official narratives obscuring the true masterminds. The use of a minor as the shooter recalls tactics employed by the Medellin cartel, where disposable operatives shielded higher-ups. Foreign involvement. Allegations of Venezuelan involvement, particularly through Maduro's protection of Iván Márquez, are plausible given Colombia's history of cross-border insurgent activity. However, these claims, amplified by Álvaro Uribe and Abelardo de la Espriella, lack concrete evidence and may serve to politicize the investigation. The U.S. origin of the murder weapon suggests arms trafficking networks, possibly linked to criminal groups rather than state actors. Critical evaluation. The Second Marquetalia theory is the most substantiated, supported by intelligence reports and the group's history of violence against political opponents. However, the death of key suspect Zarco Aldinever and the lack of definitive evidence raise doubts about uncovering the full chain of command. The political conspiracy theory involving Petro's government is compelling due to the timing and Petro's institutional maneuvers but relies on speculation without hard proof. The Clan del Golfo hypothesis aligns with Colombia's criminal dynamics but lacks specific links to the attack. The internal Democratic Center narrative appears to be a politically driven distraction. The use of a 14-year-old shooter, a common tactic in Colombia's underworld, suggests a layered operation designed to obscure the intellectual authors. The involvement of figures like Daniel and El Costeño, with ties to FARC's elite units, points to a sophisticated network, likely driven by ideological or economic motives. The timing, amidst Petro's crises and rising violence, suggests an intent to destabilize Colombia's democratic process, whether by guerrillas, criminals, or political actors. Implications for Colombia. The assassination has profound implications. Electoral impact. With the Democratic Center reeling from Uribe's death and Álvaro Uribe's conviction, the party faces challenges in selecting a presidential candidate. Maria Fernanda Cabal may gain prominence, but her populist stance could alienate moderate voters. Security crisis. The attack highlights the failure of total peace and the need for stronger security measures for political figures. The 2026 elections may see heightened violence, if armed groups exploit the vacuum. Polarization. Accusations against Petro and counterclaims against the opposition deepen divisions, potentially leading to further unrest. The March of Silence showed both unity and polarization, with anti-Petro sentiments prominent. Conclusion? The assassination of Miguel Uribe Turbay is a tragic chapter in Colombia's ongoing struggle with political violence. While Second Marquetalia emerges as the primary suspect, supported by intelligence and their opposition to Uribe's platform, alternative theories involving Petro's government, Clan del Golfo, or internal party rivalries reflect the complexity of Colombia's political and criminal landscape. The investigation's outcome will shape the 2026 elections, influencing security policies and the Democratic Center's future. As Colombia grapples with this loss, the echoes of past assassinations underscore the urgent need for a unified commitment to peace and democratic integrity. The true masterminds may remain elusive, but the impact of Uribe's death will resonate, challenging Colombia to confront its violent legacy.